We're at Pheasant Wood outside Goulburn, and I'm with my very dear friend Dick Johnson. And this is the first two, these are the first two
EB Falcons
that were made for supercars. So they have very significant history. And they've been restored to within an inch of their lives. They're beautiful. And they like actually nice looking cars, I think, compared to what we ended up with, but still, that's me being an old bloke.
When I bought this car, I was looking for a project. I happened to stumble across this when I started my early days of racing and spotted the car in Andy Cantrell's property. I says, what's this car here? And it was obviously white at the time. And he says, oh, you should recognise this, have a good look inside. And saw remnants of the yellow paint and realised it was a Johnson car. Once I realised what it was, I thought, oh, that's interesting. Never thought about it again. 10 years later, I thought to myself, I need a project. I just want something to do. Thought about this car. I rang Andy and I says, what'd you do with that Falcon? And he had started to repair the car. It was a mess. It was pretty much a mess. But he'd covered the car up with his illness. When you look at that car, the enormity of the job would depress him. So he sold it and delivered it the very next day. And that was in 2013. It lived in the workshop next door for about 3 years on that corner hoist. And that's when I started refabricating all the damaged parts on that car. And that was a long process. I didn't work on it all the time. A lot of times I would come in at 4 in the morning and do 3-4 hours work before I'd open the workshop up. And really, if it wasn't for those hours in the morning, it would never have got done. And it wasn't until later, I didn't really do it for what the car meant. It was just that I wanted a Dick Johnson car and I just wanted to put it back together. But it wasn't until later I realised that this car's got more significance than I thought. Didn't realise about the real history of the car. In the early days, I got as much information as I possibly could. But then sometimes the information was incorrect as well. And you say you've done something, you have to redo it. Fortunately, there wasn't too much of that. In the later stages where once a car was painted and we're starting now talking about assembly of components or whatever, like just the brake calipers alone, that was such an ordeal to find those brake calipers from the period. This set here on the front of this car is off this car. All that type of stuff was really important. All these little details, was a 10 bolt or 12 bolt, and I'd sit there watching videos every night. So it was pretty important to get everything right. But the things I had to fabricate, as long as I had something to copy, that was enjoyable. We've got it as close as possibly to the original. And if I had something that mine that was totally worn out and unrestorable, we just made a new one, but made sure it looked exactly the same. I had a good association with the engine shop at DJR. And I bought crankshafts and conrods and a brand new set of pistons that they said they're new old stock that had been sitting there forever. It's getting harder and harder for the C engines to find that stuff. So pretty much everything in my engine is brand new. Heads were serviced at DJR. I do all the assembly. And then we've sent both engines up to Dick Johnson Racing and they did the dyno on them. And both come back with healthy numbers and they're both in there now and they both run. From the point of a painted car, I'm not including, I know I spent more than 1,000 hours in the body repairs in this car. But from the point of when they've been painted to now, it's 2,000 hours a car. And I'm probably falling short of that as well. But I worked out that I allow for working 10 hours a day and call it 4 days, but I work 5. And you work out how many years that is, it's in excess of that. But I thoroughly enjoy it. Just knowing that I've done to the best of my ability with all the information I've got, that we've got these pretty much bang on, that I'm comfortable with what I've done.
EB2 and EB3, they were two Falcons we built after the very first prototype that we built back in 92, 93, because the series changed over from Group A to V8 touring cars, we used to call them then, 5 litre touring cars. And the thing was that we built one and Cams wouldn't accept it because it was sort of probably a bit too out there for them, for the fact that we had, you know, big wheel tubs and things like that. But they wanted it to be more representative of the road car, which presented a few problems. But this is where Jimmy and Ross Stone came and worked with us, and we ended up building 2 cars for the 93-94 season. Well, Amaroo Park is a very small, short circuit, but it's a very tricky little circuit, and I was fortunate enough to sort of obviously qualify really well, and I feel really proud the fact that I won the very first V8, what was now called Supercar race.
The crowd are standing as one as Dick Johnson of Queensland wins the first 5 litre heat. The V8s are back.
Because we had our own manifolds that Murray Bunn did for us, a Kiwi guy that we knew very well, or especially Ross and Jimmy Stone knew very well, and he helped us sort of engineer a crossover manifold which worked very well, and our engines were probably the best in the field, and to be quite honest, they were individual engines which nobody else had. Having, you know, some of the history of where we've been in my career anyway, and seeing it back to the way it originally was, really puts a smile on my face. I always want to have a look at, bring back a few good memories. You know, memories are something that it's the only thing I got these days, so I might as well make the most of them.
We've done a mighty job. The checkered flag is out for you.
Here's the moment, savour it, John.
John Bowe wins the 1994 Tui's 1000. Dick Johnson is absolutely jubilant, as you'd expect.
With the blessing of John, who owns the car, I'm going to do a few quiet laps in it. I don't think I'll be doing anything crazy. I might have to do a bit of an update on where everything is, but yeah, I'll look forward to it. It's when I last raced it was, I think, 94, so it's a long time between drinks.
Yeah.
It's 30 years since I sat in this car, and it feels like yesterday, honestly. Everything's the same. It's been beautifully restored. It's like a work of art, honestly, and driving it again, I mean, it's like going back in time, honestly. I feel like, you know, this is on the little Pheasant Wood Circuit, so it's a bit tight for these cars, but yeah, it does. I feel like I'm 30 years younger, which obviously I'm not.